the ascended masters and how they got 720 degrees, right? So you said a lot. I got to bring a question up to the floor real quick, then I'm gonna ask mine. Shout out to Miss Ladybug. I say it says gratitude, Chief. My mama, a bird out of Mississippi with Lee in the name. What tribe are the birds likely from, and what would you do with land in Mississippi?
I think they primarily Choctaw, or Chata is the right name. Choctaw is the Dawes Roll interpretation of the name Chata.
Mm.
In the bird family, the last name is derived from the chicken fry.
Mm.
We used to have bird fries in the South. We used to have pit masters. The Pittman family was the pit masters. They used to do the barbecue contests for the celebrations that Big Mama used to have.
That's deep. Yeah, that's
all you know the all our names, our tribal names, is related to nature.
Yeah, just like the Orisha and the Netchers.
Yeah. So the people that they call Shaw, those are Shoshone from the Shoshone River region. Upshaw comes from the upper Shoshone, which is the upper Shoshone River region. But that's not their name, that's their geography. But in the English language, because of the exonym of their geography that was thrust upon them by the colonizer, they adopted the last names that represented the location that their tribal origin is from.
Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep. So the I forgot what they call the cat. What do you call the people in Israel now? The Kazians? What do you call them again? The Khazarians, right? Okay, so now just for clarity's sake, right? Who are the original ones that they would call quote unquote the JEWs? Would that not be folks?
If you look up Morris Zionist Jew, you'll see a picture of him. If you look up Adolf Hitler's Black Genocide, you'll see a book about him.
Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep. Okay. All right. So let me see what this is. Yeah, nah, this is deep, man. Like for real. So in regards to hold on, she got one more.
Look, they started calling them Jews, and it had nothing to do with Judah. Right. They started calling them Jews because the royal families traded in jewelry.
So that's an acronym, or is that an acronym, or
it's short for jewelry.
Abbreviation.
Yep.
That's deep. That's real deep.
Yeah, real deep. The jewelry. That's why if you go to New York in what they call the Diamond District, all of the hot city Jews is walking around with briefcases full of diamonds, but you better not touch one.
Oh yeah. Well, we see a lot of that in the movies. A lot of movies. Matter of fact, the one that just Ice Cube's son just dropped. What was it? The one, it was part 2. What's the name of that movie? It had the brother. What's the dude named Gerard Butler? Dang, what's the name of that movie? But anyway, they were diamond thieves, and like they kind of played out some of what we're talking about in the movie. But it was 2 of them. I cannot think of the name. But I know somebody in the tribe will drop it in the comments. But that definitely brings me to.
Them was the ones that the police been protecting since it was New Amsterdam. That's who the police came over here to be security for. Those are converts. And the jewelry badge that they wear on their lapels in Europe tell them which allegiance to which one of the black nobility families they have. Right? If you type in European royal black face brooch, it'll come up and you'll see it on their lapel pin. That's telling you the family that pale face is have an allegiance with, that give them something that look like power.
Yeah, that's real deep. I'm trying to find a comment. It was a good question. I'm trying to find it. It was somebody that wanted that they. Damn, I want to find it so I can bring it up. But I believe the question was, can you break down what the difference is in regards to last names with the last name White and I think Brown? Is there any symbolism to that?
Yeah, the Brown is Cleveland Indians. Last name Brown. Browns used to be one of the biggest clans of Mississippians on the land.
Mm.
The ones who got the name White was actually being classified as don't touch this family.
Mm.
So
Mm.
they was one of the 9 treaty tribes who was off limits to the colonizers, or else they would make the rest of the tribes nut the fuck up by royal status.
Mm. Now, when you say the royal status, are you talking about the people in England, or are you talking about?
Tribally over here.
Okay,
Our royalty don't look like European royalty.
got you.
Like our big mamas sit in front of the big house. They used to be called Big Mama House until she got poisoned by a dirty Moor.
Mm.
And then he hired his pale face management crew to pretend to be massa.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep.
And they
Now,
kept them in line with something called slave patrols or police.
yep. Here we go, right here. This was the question. Now, how does that? What is that? Like, how does that? Pretty much the receipts that I see that everything is confirming everything you're saying is the footage that, if y'all want to look it up, family, of the Pope before he transitioned, going down the line, kissing the feet of what we call the black nobility. How does that tie in? Like, is that what we're talking about? That police force that's ran through that Vatican and the papal and all, you know?
Those are the owners. Those are the owners. Those are the Pope's handlers.
Mm.
Those are the ones whose bidding he's been doing.
Mm.
But now they got to give it all back because they lost the war. Look, they used to, when they moved to Switzerland to be the world's bankers, they built an underground city under the Alps. Used to didn't even acknowledge the underground city until Donald Trump got elected in 2017, and Interpol, along with several foreign militaries, went in there and raided them.
Mm.
And now they've been cleaned out, and they're doing tours of it now.
Mm. Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'll be gosh darned.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then they trying to act like the defense stuff they had. They trying to act like it ain't been operational in years. They just dismantled that stuff.
That's deep.
Now remember, Switzerland is the only neutral country in the world.
That's never been in a war.
Well, they was in a war before they became the neutral country.
Since then, they have had no.
It was the 1800s.
Okay, right.
That's when the Dirty Moors used the cover of the war to flee into Switzerland. And that's when they recruited the Khazarians to be their cover story, to keep them a secret while they rule as the man behind the curtain. The Khazarian Jews was the cat's paw for those black Jews. They sent them to places to do their bidding, but before that, before the 1800s, they came themselves. Christopher Columbus was one. His navigator, Pedro del Negro, was one. They was being exiled in the Inquisition in the French Revolution. Remember, they formed a great inquisitor to oust the Moors from Europe. They made it look like it was a religious conflict, of Christians versus Muslims, but it was Europeans ousting the settler colonizer Moors that came in 711. Right? They told us that they civilized them people. Right? If you understand the effects that civilization can have on uncivilized people, they would see you as a god.
Mm.
So my question is, why would they kick them out?
Mm.
Why would you kick God out your land? What was they doing? But when you look at the statues over there, they show you what they was doing. They was eating babies. They was molesting kids. They was drinking blood. They was doing blood magic rituals, money magic rituals, sex magic rituals. It's in the artwork over there. You can't walk through Rome and turn 2 blocks and don't see a bunch of peckers hanging in your face. Statuary of priests with his gown wrapping around young boys.
Sick shit.
Yeah, that's why they got kicked out.
It's disgusting.
They don't want to admit it though.
Nah.
Because they want to get the appearance of being the bringers of civilization. But according to the castles on this land, we was already civilized.
That part. Big facts. Yeah. That's deep. And you know what? It's funny that you say that, because I was going to bring up the point of the petroglyphs, right? The petroglyphs that we find in a lot of the caves, you know, in inner crevices of the earth. Does that not depict and tell some of the ancient antiquity stories that we're talking about now, and kind of like how the hieroglyphs play in
not only the ancient stories, but it also tells the current story. It's like reading a tarot card. That's why a tarot card is even a thing.
God damn, we yes, sir.
Remember, the history was wrote in advance and we lived it out in reverse. Right? So we coming up on the grand finale. Sooner or later, they gonna have to tell y'all who's who on the planet Earth. Who's the rightful heir? Who is the one who came to solve the problem of the colonizers on the land without going to bloody war to educate themselves above the condition? They gonna have to tell y'all. Right? Because the ones who's doing the work can't tell y'all that and expect y'all to believe it, because they've conditioned us that none of us ain't smart enough to figure out how to get from out of their trap. That ain't what my mama said.
They failed that miserably.
You know what I say?
Yeah,
they feel like that, but that ain't what my mama said.
Right, and that's why I say they failed at that miserably.
I believe my mama over all of them.
I know that's right. All day, every day. And you know, it reminds me of the and I was just talking about this like maybe a day or two ago, but like what we're talking about when you talk about the black nobility and those dirty Moors, for those who have seen the Haitian Revolution, the documentary 1804, you know, it's the collaborators, you know what I'm saying? Like those
Napoleon wasn't no pale face. Napoleon Bonaparte wasn't no pale face. But if you look at the depictions that they give us in the history books, he was a Huguenot. Huguenot is dark Frenchman. When he took he sent his brother. He didn't even go himself. He sent his brother to command the troops in the Haitian aggression. Should have left them people alone, because he get the spiritual ass whipping now.
Yes, sir. That's funny, because that's what McIntyre told them too. He said, "Yeah, y'all might kill me now, but trust me, I'm coming back as a mosquito." And he came back dumping off malaria. Listen, boy, we got some powerful, you know, warriors. And
look, after the Haitian Revolution, Look at the Haitian migration pattern, and you're gonna find they went to two places: Florida and Louisiana.
And that goes back to what we talked about in the last episode when it comes to those two places.
The Gulla Wars was going on in Florida. They sent soldiers to fight because Big Mama said all hands on deck. Samoan sent people, Tongan sent people, Hawaiian sent people, Asians that lived in Alaska sent people to Florida. All of the Mississippian collective tribes across the land was sending all of their people south and east. This is what made them set up Georgia. Georgia was never supposed to be a state. It was a military buffer zone to stop the incursion of the tribes that was coming in from the west, from settling east on the Florida panhandle to go in and aid in the Gulla Wars that they call Seminole Wars. You tell who telling the story by what they call the war. We call them the Gulla Wars. The conquistadors call them the Seminole Wars because they say they come from the root word Seminoles, which mean a mixed up one, which they say mean runaway slave, but that ain't what it really means. The root word is semi, which means half. Mixed breeds, mixed tribes. Look, when you pull up the picture, every of the Gulla Wars, they got a straight hair Native American and a brother standing on his left with an afro. And in the book, it's telling you that the slaves ran away and joined on to the Gullas to fight in the war. Now, the problem is the people don't know that the nappy-haired brother was the chief. And the runaway slave was the one that looked like he was Asian. Because that's who they brought over first as their servants. From all of them long wars of the Ottomans and the Romans versus the Huns and Mongolians and their captives, they set up in what's called slave villages or peasant villages, right? And they would live off and tend to the local land for the land barons who became landlords over here. So when they first came, the first servants they brought was from the slave villages. They didn't start bringing the paleface over until the 1800s. They was using them to block us from entering into the institutions of economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. So they used the brown paper bag test as the determinant if you was light enough to enter into those clubs, those institutions.
Wow.
The problem was some of the yellow niggas that could pass was more militant than the dark nigga that felt like he was destitute. Because the one who was light-skinned and could pass, he had a taste of what freedom was like, what power was like. And he wanted that for his people. But remember, they brought them over here for them to get one drop of blood from us in the great melding pot of God's crucible. The Masonic Lodge is well aware of everything I'm saying. They just won't say it out loud because it's a violation of the oath of the brotherhood. The speculative Mason cannot expose the operations of the operative Mason. They got to let him operate. The one that's the operant don't never need the lodge because the principles of masonry and the building oneself to manhood is hardwired into his genetics. So the speculative Mason watch from a distance to see exactly how will he build himself after this tragedy. And then they take notes. And the notes become the instructional manual for the next wave of raised and past masters.
God, oh boy, we're gonna need the fire department, boy. Cause man, you blowing things all flames all over.
Hey, I got about 10 more minutes, and I gotta go get something to eat. My stomach rumbling.
Mine too. That's funny. Look, I love the conversation, but mine growling too. That's funny you say that. Listen, somebody said we were twins on there. I don't know who. I can't find that one. That's funny because the first one I was looking. I like, bro, dude look like my pops, man. That's crazy. I got to look in and seeing where where them genes, where the lineages.
That's that Mississippi play dirt bloodlines.
Hey, it is. Yeah, I take it, man, because I know we sure migrated to the Gulla before we went up top. So that sounds about right to me. Definitely. Man, this is dope. So let me see if I can get a couple of questions real quick from the tribe before. I did see a lot of them. It's so many, family. Y'all forgive me because I know I won't be able to get to everybody, but I'm gonna definitely try to get to a few before we get this thing wrapped up tonight. But okay, so let's go with I'll go with this one. This one's for earlier. It says, are the extraterrestrials the Anunnaki?
Not all of them. You got multiple extraterrestrial species that's observing the conflicts on the earth between the earthborn and the invaders. They watching us jump through the hoops of the cycles, and they all rooting for the earthborn to win. So we won. Shouldn't have never asked me to play the game if you ain't want me to win.
Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep. I got a couple more that I had started earlier to try to come back to. So this is one I would love to get your opinion on. That's why I put that one put it to the side. What's your take on this one, Susan Ralph? What the Moai and Easter Islands means bad beings and Cantonese, thin lips pointing over. What do you think about that?
Well, you got to remember what made them call them that, right? And when did they encounter the statues? If you encounter the statues before the colonizer come for the first time, and you become terrified by the statues because you ain't ever seen nothing like it before, and then you give it a name, but sooner or later you start getting used to seeing them, but the name doesn't change, right? So the people of Easter Island, they was casualties of the nuclear holocaust. That's why they disappeared, and all of that soot that built up was from the sediment of the ice age when it was frozen over.
That's deep. So what would you say in regards to, do you feel like that this person is right when they say that they're bad, or do you feel like they're wrong in regards to
they was people like us.
Right.
Everybody, all of us ain't good and all of us ain't bad. And most of us are somewhere in the middle of the two.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. They're just a typical human. So I got another one. This one is mitochondria DNA needed to ascend? And I'm assuming ascend to the next.
Absolutely. Look, if your mitochondria get turned off, your cells die. Anybody don't understand that? The powerhouse of the cell is the mitochondria. You get it from your mama. Without an active spiritual link to your mama, which just turns your mitochondria on, without that link, you can't do nothing but die. Because you have no way to power your cells. There's no energy coming through the mitochondria to replenish the cell's energy as it operates as a crystalline transmitter. That's what it is. The amino acids of the DNA are crystals, crystalline. It's just that we was using a carbon configuration in order to downsize the 12-strand over the eons to a 2-strand. The 2-strand DNA is the upgrade. The 12-strand DNA was the old bulky clunky original. You got to upgrade. This is why the sun keeps sending solar flares periodically changing the DNA. It's upgrades. When we evolve to a certain level, the sun gonna send the upgrade information, and the earth gonna respond. The mitochondria ties you to the earth, and so when you tied to the earth, you tied to your mother. You tied to Mother Earth. That's why grounding works so well to help people stabilize their erratic mental and spiritual and emotional energy. Because now you tying into the greatest and oldest mother that we know of, and that's Mother Earth that we all emerged from. And the mitochondrial is the link. It's the Holy Ghost transmitter. The only reason why it can't turn up because you haven't developed your spiritual DNA to facilitate all of the energy. And that's why when they catch the Holy Ghost, all they can do is either dance or flop around like a fish.
That's deep.
Because too much energy coming in. We can't do nothing. You don't know what to do with it. You can't control it. But if you can control it, then you would be a Qigong master. You would be Yu-Gi-Oh!
That's deep.
Yeah. The Ifa religion takes us back to the old earth traditions, just like the Orisha tradition does. Right? Just like the Yoruba tradition does. So when we get amnesia over here of our historical ancestral culture, we can look back on the common denominators. And then we can look over here and see that we still do all this shit in the church. We ain't never stopped being who we was. They just found a way to trick us into believing we was being somebody else.
Yep. Yeah.
And rebrand all of our cultural phenomena under their monetization systems.
Yep.
Everybody got their hand out. The church, the government, the politicians, the celebrities. Everybody got their hand out, pulling on your one little old dollar. Right? So it's by confusion that they depleting you of your energetic resource in order to dominate you without having to do it by physical force. But sometimes when you figure out the game, they use physical force to get you out the game because you be doing too good. They do a 1984 Philadelphia bombing on your ass because you living off your own grown vegetables and you slaying to yourself and you teaching your people holistic living like Giant Africa was doing.
That's a whole show into its own, because you think about the Africas and the movement in Philly. You talk about Black Wall Street, and then you go into Rosewood, like all those, all autonomous. You know what I'm saying? Self-deficient.
Everywhere, right? And then you got to remember, I had Elder pull his book up called "Confessions of an Economic Hitman." All of your immortalized outlaws were economic hitmen that was sent out to shut down the local big mama banks so they can institute a central banking system to rustle the power away from the mothers across the land. The tribal mothers was the purse holders. And now they got to give it all back to her. And they don't like it. And we don't care. We got the same compassion they have for us.
That's facts. Big facts. Yeah,
they want to know how they gonna live when we take our shit back. That's not my responsibility. How you live when we take our stuff back? I hope you live as miserable as we did. I hope it come in increments of 10, like you wish your suffering upon us in increments of 10.
That's fact.
And if we get to find some of these dirty players and take their head, I want to pull the guillotine lever.
That part. Yes, sir. Yeah.
We already discussed the Irene Traore Putin thing.
Yeah, they wanted to say so. Yeah, we did. I think that was from earlier about the about. Well, I think what they were asking is, do you feel like Putin is legitimately backing him and has really supporting him? Is that,
I just the same way I said earlier. The old guard got to give it to the new guard.
They might have came in late. Check out if you'll be able to see the replay, family, in the live stream section of the channel, and then also the episode will be available soon once we can get in and get some editing done on and uploaded. But real quick, I got two more if we got time, Chief. One, Nicole's House of Wellness says she don't have a question, but she's curious about the Creole Pope in America, the first American Pope, which we kind of tapped in. Matter of fact, I'm glad she asked that because we talked about it on our last interview, our first, but our last interview. But then also, I saw how they did a little switcheroo. What do you think was the reason of them doing what they did? Was saying he had a little bit of this, a little bit of that, instead of just putting a black one out. What do you think that was about?
Well, they can't.